G'day legends, welcome to the Thursday Sesh on Celtic Down Under. I'm your host Jared, and joining me tonight are a couple of new faces. We're joined from some boys from across the ditch in New Zealand. We've got Ian and Kevin. How you going, Ian?
I'm good, mate. How are you? Thanks for having us.
It's great to have us on.
Yeah, good to be here.
How you going, Kevin?
Yeah, good, Jared. Ian, good to meet you again. Yeah, looking forward to this.
Should be good fun. So, for those who watch Axom regularly, they'll recognise Ian's chiseled jawline and that hairdo and everything from the Tuesday show over there. So, thanks for jumping over and jumping on to both of you. So, yeah, we'll get stuck into the podcast ahead. So, yeah, what we'll do is we'll go through the Aberdeen game, a few other topics to talk about. Jump in the comments when you're watching. Let us know any questions you have, any ideas. If there's anything you want us to answer, put it in there. We like to make the show as interactive as possible. So, yeah, we'll get into the Aberdeen game. So, we played Aberdeen a couple of days ago. What day was it over here again? Wednesday.
Yesterday, right?
Yeah, yesterday. There you go.
Yeah.
I'm losing track of days, boys. There you go. Got no idea what's going on. So yeah, we beat them 5-1. Our starting lineup for the game, as usual: Casper in goals, Alistair Johnson and Jeffrey Schlupp at fullbacks. Centre backs is Team America, Carter Vickers and Trusty. Middle of the park, McGregor, Engels and Hatade. Up front, striker was Maeda with Jota and Kun on the wings. So seeing that lineup there, Kevin, is that our strongest lineup? Because to me, I think that's our strongest starting lineup.
Yeah, I think it is. I still get a wee bit worried about Trusty when he's got the ball on his feet. He seems to be quite slow, indecisive at times, and passes the ball back. So I think in the future we could maybe look at that area. But otherwise, no, I think that's our number one team at the moment.
And Ian, what are your thoughts? Because I think that the odd man out in that lineup, realistically, is Maeda. It's how do we jiggle that front four? Do we start Ida or do we start Maeda at striker? So, yeah, what's your thoughts? Is that our strongest lineup, or would you think Ida would be in there, or is it going to be horses for courses depending upon what games we're playing?
I think it probably is our strongest lineup per se, but it is horses for courses. And I think Maeda, I'm a big fan of Maeda. I think he's, that is that kind of the adage. He's good with his feet for a big man and all that kind of stuff. I think he's the all round package. I think he's got better finesse than Maeda, and that's Maeda's scored 25 goals this season. But I still think when Maeda's got time to think about it, the ball can sometimes end up, yeah, exactly. So, but I think Brendan Rodgers has kind of worked his magic on Maeda. It's no coincidence that it's the same with Matt O'Reilly. He got more goals out of Matt O'Reilly. He's done the same with Maeda. So it's a luxury that I didn't think we'd actually have. After we lost Kyogo. So it's working out well. But I mean, equally, if we had Ida in there, if Maeda was injured or whatever, or if he's on the left or one of the wingers got injured, we've got a luxury. If we've got Ida in there, I'm more than happy as well. I mean, I think there's one more caveat to that as well, which is Schlupp or Taylor. I would, after the Bayern game, I would have said it was definitely Schlupp, but then watching the Aberdeen game, he didn't get total pass marks because of his distribution was a bit sloppy. Whether that's just because he's new and coming into the team, and that's just nitpicking. I'm not trying to sort of look how spoiled we are as Celtic fans, but it's just as an observer, I think our undoing over the past good while really has been lapses of concentration from both fullbacks, certainly in Europe. And as good as Adam Johnson's been on the other side as well, he switched off a couple of times at crucial moments. And what would have been a 10 out of 10 in some games, it's been knocked down to a 9 out of 10. But other than that, anyway, long-winded answer to the question. I think it's pretty much our strongest team, yeah.
Perfect time for you to wrap it up there because you were 2 seconds short of the 5-minute mark, so now we can unleash. Alistair Johnson, not Adam Johnson. We don't have a nonce at right back.
Oh, sorry, did I say Adam Johnson?
Yeah, mate. Had to correct you. Had to. But yeah, I 100% agree with you on the whole thing there, fullbacks. But talking about Schlupp, we'll talk about the striker situation later on, so we'll park that aside with Maeda and all that bit. But the Schlupp-Taylor conundrum at left back. Now, I look at that and go, Schlupp has the size, the physicality, which we've lacked in that position for years. Like pretty much since Tierney left. Like Bolingoli was the right height, but his problem was he got horny and left the country during the pandemic, right? But realistically, outside of that, we haven't had a big left back. So having Schlupp come in and play in that role, I get it. It's going to take time for him to build those relationships with the guys in front, especially when the guy in front of him, Jota, is also just returned to the club. And he's trying to build, there's only 4 players left from his last stint at the club. So he's trying to build those relationships as well. So it's one of those situations where I can give Schlupp a little bit more time. I think we look a lot more sturdier with Schlupp out there than Taylor, because Taylor's too busy wanting to be a midfielder when Schlupp will actually keep his defensive duties as his number one priority.
Yeah, for me, I felt when you were saying, Arian, about Trusty's passing, the whole team didn't play well. I actually felt, it was more showing how bad Aberdeen were than it was how good Celtic were at that game, because I really felt in fact, half the time I felt it was a training game or a pre-season match. It just didn't seem to have that get up and go, whether they're just too tired after the Bayern. But the Bayern game has taken its toll on the players a wee bit. But, I still think that Schlum would be a far better player in left back. And I think Rodgers did say that he wanted that Premier League physicality in the team. So, again, that's what he brings to the team as well. So.
No, I agree as well. I think that's, I think Taylor, as much as I love Greg Taylor, he's been a great servant. He does get bullied, and there's most teams target that left side of defence. So we definitely need that bigger physicality. And I think. I mean, look, we've got KT coming back, haven't we? So, and his injury record is not as bad as actually the stats tell you that they're not actually as bad. It's more of a perceptual thing. With his injuries, I think he averages about 35 games a season, so that's okay, but we still need an able backup, and I think Schlupp is a better sort of option than Taylor. I think Taylor is looking for a bigger contract.
Would he come to his second fiddle?
Apparently his contract's up at the end of the season with Palace, so he'd probably be free.
So there's a couple of things on that, Kevin, and that I think. So Schlupp would be good. Taylor, apparently he's wanting about 25k a week, and he's not going to get that to be a starter. That's what I've heard, right? So if we're playing 55, 60 games a season, so if Tierney's playing 35 games a season, you're right, and his injuries aren't as bad as you think, because it's always different injuries. It's not like it's the same thing over and over and over and over again. So I can live with that. But the thing with Taylor, him like wanting to be a starter and earn starters' wages at 25k a week, he's not going to get that at Celtic. Now, Schlupp's apparently on about 60 grand a week with Crystal Palace. We're apparently paying about half of that at the moment, from what I've heard. So if that's true, then we're already paying 30 grand for a backup, for someone who could potentially be a backup, who's doing a split shift at the moment. So that means the club's already getting ready, used to paying that. Now, would Schlupp accept a deal, maybe 15, 20k a week, to come up and do the Joe Hart signing, come up the road towards the end of his career, win a few trophies, and become idolised by a fan base like ours? If he catches the bug this 6 months at the club and he loves it, maybe he'd want to.
I agree. Yeah.
So that's what we've got to hope, that he forms some sort of attachment to his teammates, to the club, to the fan base. He's like, yeah, I'm 31 years old. I'm probably going to play another 3-4 years. Let's get a contract, and it's not going to be as much money, but let's get up the road. Let's get some trophies and end my career on the right path.
Yeah, go for the glory. I agree, and I think as well, Kevin and I have a bit more of a vintage than you, Jared. I think kind of 32 is probably the new 28. In terms of the modern player, the way that their diet and the way that it's changed. I think you're right. He probably will go and play for another 3-4 years. I'd say at least 3 years. Considering his conditioning, so that wouldn't be a bad shout, really. I think he'll grow into it as well. I mean, you look at the Premier League players. I was listening to something. I think it was Frank McAvenny's podcast I was listening to today, and it was Jackie McNamara, and he was saying, to become a sort of top class football now, it's no longer Everest. Whereas before, to reach that point, there was so much competition. Whereas now, in modern times, you've got to be more of an athlete. If you're an athlete and you can understand positional sense, it's less a technical game these days, So you look at the Premier League; these players are units, that can run about and that physicality, So I think Schlupp kind of falls in that category, I think he's got that presence that we need. As I say, I think even if Taylor was given the money to stay with us, I think he's still going to get outbullied quite a lot, and especially in Europe, So even if he's a backup, we're still being targeted at that left hand side. So him coming in would definitely be my shout.
The
So what I'll
Champions
do is-
League, sorry, Jeremy, the Champions League is a big attraction. He's had a taste of that now with Bayern. So again, coming up to the end of his career, getting that exposure, he's not going to get that anywhere else, I don't think.
Well, you said it before about Joe Hart, and Kasper Schmeichel's now experiencing it. I mean, how many? I don't know if you've been to Parkhead, Jared, but I mean, on a European night, if you take anyone, I've taken colleagues and I've taken friends who are not Celtic fans to Celtic Park for league games. But when you take people for a Champions League night, it's unbelievable. It'll blow your mind. It blows anyone's mind, and it's no coincidence that all the top players, everyone raves about it, So I think the fact that Schlupp has experienced that as a player, he's not going to get that at Crystal Palace. And I know the Premier League is the self-proclaimed best league in the world. It's not the best league in the world for me, but you say it enough and it becomes reality. I think when players come from England to Celtic, it really blows their mind, And I think it's a hard thing to give up once you're if they're only on loan, It's a hard thing to give up.
So what I'll do is I'll bring up some comments about the Schlupp thing, then we'll just jump back to the game quickly. But yeah, I'm just looking at this here. So we've got Smell the Glove is saying KT played full second half for Arsenal yesterday, so that's a good thing there. And then we had John Clements was saying, where are we here? Schlupp is fine. Taylor looks busy rushing about but does little. Schlupp every day of the week. There's a reason Taylor gets targeted. Heavy Vibes are saying gave Scales a few games and rest Calmac until the Hun game. And then we had John Clements is saying here, Schlupp, no transfer fee, large signing on fee, then lower wages. That's how it'd have to work. So if it was going to happen, Heavy Vibes is saying half of Schlupp's wages is more than Taylor is looking, which we mentioned that. And then Smell the Glove is saying Scales showed when he came on why he isn't a left back. Too slow. He's fine as a backup left centre half though. And then Big Rab is saying Schlupp isn't coming. This loan offer has shown he can still play at a decent level. He will get 60 to 80k overseas, no chance. There's no harm in dreaming, Rab. Honestly. Let a guy dream, please. And then Heavy Vibes are saying make Schlupp dog the offer and he might stay. So, and then McLaughlin saying try Schlupp at centre back besides CCV once the title's wrapped up and see what happens. And then Pegleg is saying Schlupp has already made his money. It's not beyond possible he might stay for another season. He fits the Rodgers profile. And then McLaughlin's followed up saying it may be about the prestige of playing Champions League football at his age, which attracts him to stay here. And that's 100% what we're hoping for as well. So we'll see how that plays out. But just to the Aberdeen game, just to rattle through that pretty quickly. I'm sure everyone tuning in has listened to enough Celtic pods between the game and now to pretty much have done it to death. So first half for me, I thought Aberdeen was the better team in terms of the football being played. They made the better chances from their actual play. The way they built up their play, cut through the lines, got through, couple of wide shots. We took our chances. Like Maeda was the right spot for that deflection for the first goal. Jota absolutely scuffed his goal. Kicked it off with his right foot onto his left foot and it somehow went in. So yeah, overall, the first half, I thought we were in that first gear. We were ugly. We didn't play well. But at the end of the day, the only quality finish for us was Kelmax, one at the end of the first half. Like the rest of the half, I thought we didn't play great football. Any differing views to that, Kevin?
No, I agree with you. And to be fair, I look at the chances that Aberdeen had. I look back at the Hibs game, and I look back at the Glasgow Derby at Ibrox when we lost 3-0, and the defence looked real shaky, and they just don't seem to have that gelled unit, despite the fact that they can do heroics in Europe. You know, the way they defended against Atalanta, the way they defended against Bayern Munich in both games, to be honest. And then you see them give away goals or give away chances like they did. I just find it bizarre, to be honest. But everything you've said, I agree with. Aberdeen did play some decent football, and at one point I did think, even at 2-0 up, I thought, oh, they could easily come back here. You know, so I was a bit worried at that point.
But I watched the Liverpool Newcastle game today in parallel with the Rangers game, just sort of an interest. And it's, if you look at Slot's Liverpool, right? He's just taken over from. I know this is a Celtic podcast, so there's a reason for this point here, but it's they're relentless. They've had very, very little dips. I know they've got a much superior budget to us, but they're relentless. And my worry was after the Leipzig game. You know how you have like these things you see in papers where you like OAPs have these moments of stress where they can like get superhuman strength and like lift the car off their grandson, or like, you know, an evangelical like granny ripping like phone books in half. You know, it's like, I was hoping it wasn't one of those kind of moments against Leipzig that was just like it was once in a lifetime and we got ourselves up for that game, but then we just returned to our normal selves. We kind of did, but then we showed it against Bayern Munich again. The point I'm making with Liverpool is Liverpool have got that bar up there, and they're ripping phone books in half every week, you know, and they're keeping that standard, whereas we're not. We're dipping. We're a bit wavy. Is that because we're not getting that competition in our own league? You know, boo-hoo, you know, but again, it's not for Celtic to drop down to other levels. It's for other teams to come up to our level. But I wonder if that affects us a little bit more. So the likes of the game at home against Aberdeen, you know, one of the kind of the bigger names in Scottish football, it did take us half the first half to get going. And the second half, when we did get going, it was a bit clunky, but you know, it still shows the class that we've got. The fact that we can get 5 goals against the third place team in the league. So you know, we're not firing on all cylinders. We're still smashing teams, but there's still a way to go. I hope Brendan Rodgers stays for a lot longer. This is still all part of the evolution, and I think naturally the likes of even Trusty, I know we just signed him for $6 million. I think these guys will eventually be phased out and we'll get better quality. You know, and that you know, the left back, the right back's position and stuff. I think naturally we'll the longer we go in the Champions League and establish ourselves there, we'll start to sign better players. We'll have a bit more money. The board will have more trust in the manager. So that evolution will keep coming to fruition, and we'll have less of the moments of superhuman strength. It's in sporadic terms. It will be all the time.
Well, that's pretty much what Brugge's done with their team. They've been in the Champions League 7 straight years, and they've gradually built it up season on season. Where it's okay, they're willing to sign, instead of signing that €3 million player, push the boat out and sign a £6 million player at a position this year. Then the next year they do well. The next year they do the same with 2 positions. They do the same for another 2 positions. Do the same for another 2, and they build their team up. And at the same time, these players that they're buying for 6 to 10 million euro or whatever, they're then selling for 30. Then the manager's being given 20 of that to reinvest back in, spends it all on a starting level player for 10 to 12, and then they buy his backups, and they have that production line, which I've spoken about on the podcast a few times. So it's, you want to have the starter in, but then you want to have his replacement there underneath, learning what we have at the moment with Casper in goals with Sinosalo as his understudy. To me, that's an ideal setup. Or you got KT coming back. Do you look at someone like Matt Anderson, who's out on loan in Austria, playing week in, week out at left back? Do you bring him in to be the understudy long term if you can't keep Schlupp? So that when KT eventually moves on, retires, whatever, you've got the next guy ready to go. That's what we need to be doing. So that's how we need to improve it. You were going to say something, Kevin?
You know, I was just going to say about the another thing that I find with Celtic when I've been back to Scotland and went to the games. When I hear the fans at the stadium, and I feel that they're a wee bit subdued, it's really hard for the players to actually kick on. And I felt that a few times this season, and I felt it again at the Aberdeen game, when I listened to the fans and only a small section singing, and there wasn't as big an atmosphere. I just found that the players don't seem to respond too well to that. And I've seen it firsthand. I've been to a few games, and Celtic have toiled. I mean, I was back 2 years ago. Celtic St Mirren at Celtic Park. It was a one each draw, I think it was, and we just never managed to get going. And I really felt that the atmosphere was quite dead. And I'm just wondering if that's got something to do with it as well, not just about us dropping a level, but I just feel that maybe if the atmosphere was a bit more buoyant, I think you'd see more out of the players.
Well, Brendan chimed in with that the other week, didn't he? When he said about the sighing and when the ball gets passed back, it's to start a new attack. But obviously the Celtic way, and it was on that McAvenny podcast today when McNamara was talking about it. Our wingers, our fullbacks have always overlapped, bombed on and overlapped traditionally. So maybe there's a kind of, going back to Jock Stein days, that was kind of the way that Celtic kind of were known to play. There's certain teams in football that are known to play with a kind of swashbuckling style, But you're right. When I've been back as well, you kind of have that, those sort of nominal games, in December or whatever it might be, or whatever, and it's kind of like, so it's almost like the league's not almost won, and you're doing well, but you have that kind of that lull in play, but again, you can't have like blood and thunder for the full 90 minutes when it's like minus bloody 20 probably, and it's it's a cold day and that kind of stuff. But I know what you mean, Kev. I know what you mean, and it's kind of like we've talked about it before as well, and on Axom, it's like, are we spoiled? Is that kind of where that's coming from? And I don't know. I don't know if we're spoiled. I think it's just the expectation is very, very high. And when you hear about players who leave Celtic or they leave Rangers and they go to other clubs, say in England, they can't understand the mentality where a draw is okay. It's a good result, or if you lose to a bigger team, it's acceptable. Once you leave Celtic, it's kind of like they expect that it's a very high standard. You've got to win every game. It's not possible to win every single game all the time, but near as damn it, that's the expectation. So, that's why certain players have come up and they've had a decent reputation, but they've wilted and couldn't fit the jersey.
Yeah, so talking about the fan situation, so we talk about the players come off the highs of Europe, and then you have those lulls after, like you were saying there, Ian, where it takes a few games to get back up to speed, right? And maybe that's like the Hibs game. I can understand it. We go from the wide open places, Allianz Arena, their stadium in Munich, to go to play at Easter Road, which is pokey and pretty small, right? And they've won 10 straight at that point, or they're undefeated in 10 games. So they're coming into it in some form. And you can kind of understand the way that played out. But to then come home, play Aberdeen, the team in third, win 5-1, like the Yang goal with 19 touches in the lead up, that was some class football.
Yeah.
So to get that sort of stuff, but then the fans aren't always up and about. Like, I can understand why, because it's an emotional investment as a fan as well, where you get in and you're celebrating, and then on top of that, VAR shits me to tears, because the worst thing is, like, you celebrate a goal and you're like, yes, and then it's like VAR check and you're like, oh. So then people don't celebrate straight away, because if something looks slightly sus, they have a look and you're like, and then straight away you look at the board instead of before celebrating. So it kind of makes it a bit odd for me. But yeah, I just think overall, like, Brendan spoke about it, as you mentioned, Ian, but they've also said in the past, it's the holy trinity of Celtic. It's the players, it's the fans, it's the board. We've got to get all three on the same page. Well, or was it the manager? I can't remember what the third one is. It chops and changes, whatever story you're talking about. But Brendan, the fans, and the players, they're all on the same page. So it'll come back. But I'm just going to get some comments up. So who was your man of the match from the Aberdeen game? We'll wrap that up there. Me, it was Maeda.
I think probably Maeda as well, yeah. I mean, I couldn't believe I can't believe I'm saying this, but Yang, I know he didn't get man of the match, but when Yang came on, I thought he was really lively. I thought he had a lot to prove. His goal was great. His give and go. So special mention to Yang, but I think I'd go with Maeda as well.
Yeah,
We're
I'd go
officially
Maeda.
member.
I'd go
Officially,
Maeda, but in saying that, I have got to say Engels. I've slated him at the start of the season, things like that, but I think he's come on to a really good game, and I thought, yeah, it was a good call as well.
on that with Engels, if he keeps improving at the rate he's improving now, he'll go for more than Matt O'Reilly. There you go. That's a hot
Yeah,
take for you, and it's not that hot.
Oh no, I think
But
that's obvious. I think that's obviously the plan as well. That I think Brendan's convinced the board that he's made plenty of money so far for the club, and I think he's got that trust. And I think as well people know that when they're dealing with Brendan Rodgers now from the Premier League, they can't take the piss really. Hopefully long gone are those days where you've got a Virgil van Dijk going to Southampton first and then go to Liverpool. It's like cut out the middleman, just go direct to the big club for the right money.
that's what we've got to get to. So, yeah, it was Engels was the only player at the half time that I thought didn't lower his colours. I thought he was our best player in the first half, and in the second half things turned around a bit. So, yeah, we're officially members of the Yang Gang on this podcast. Dan, who was on Thursdays, is now on the Monday show. He is like the number one ticket holder of the Yang Gang in the Celtic Down Under area. So, yeah, we don't mind him over here. He's one of those ones where Rodgers can find a player, shape him, develop him, and build him up. And of the 3 Koreans we brought in, he was probably the worst of the lot originally. And now look at him. He's getting out there in Champions League games. And when he come on against Munich, I was like, oh, it's Yang. Yeah, okay. I wasn't like, oh, it's Yang. Fuck, here we go. Like it was earlier in the Champions League. So you can see the improvement over the course of the season. Still a drop off from the guy in front of him, but still.
Yeah, but I think his physicality. We look at when Kuhn came in, and we didn't know he had the problem with his teeth, and he was really slight, kept getting knocked off the ball. Yang's a bit like that, but obviously Kuhn's sort of when we put a stone on, he looks a bit more of a unit for a small fella. And I think Yang needs to, if he can get his conditioning, put a bit of beef on, put a bit of muscle on. I think he'll marry that way because he's twinkle toes, isn't he? He's got some good skill. I think it's just that durability and strength on the ball that he needs to just improve.
You just reminded me of something, Ian. When you were talking before, talking about the Celtic way with the fullbacks bombing on, and I was thinking of this at the time, and it completely lost my mind afterwards until now. The Rodgers system works perfect to that Celtic way with fullbacks bombing on. You think back to his first stint. He had Lustig on one side, Tierney on the other. One would stay salt with 3 at the back, the other one would bomb on. But then he had Sinclair and he had Roberts. And those two were inverted wingers. Like you'd have Roberts on the right coming in onto his left, Sinclair on the left coming in onto his right. Look at the current lineup now with Maeda at striker. Jota on the left who likes to come in on his right. Kun on the right who likes to go in on his left. Yang on the right who likes to go in on his left. It makes perfect sense because if you've got Schlupp, who's an athlete, bombing up and down the left, you've got Johnson on the right, bombing up and down there. It's starting to get back to that, which ties into that Celtic way you were talking about early on. So I can see a future with Yang actually being that guy. Like, not the starter, but he's developing enough in that system and in that type of play that it actually works for the Rodgers system.
Well, like you said with Bruges, it's kind of like that. I think maybe the hope is, I think we acknowledge that, we grow these players. So the likes of Kuhn, he's going to be sold eventually, and you would hope that the conveyor belt would mean that Yang gets to a sufficient level where he can step in. I think that's a shame. I would have thought Sinisalo would have had a bit more game time, considering he's the heir apparent. But that's kind of not really happened because Casper's such a stalwart, really. And I suppose it's different with the defence. You want to keep the defence pretty settled, but I think Jared, getting to your point before about Bruges, I think maybe that's kind of the thinking. And hopefully it can bear fruit. In a few more years, we want to keep Kuhn for a bit longer, but yeah, hopefully by the time he goes to get sold, he's ready.
So, Kevin, you got anything to add on that topic before I just bring up some comments?
Oh yeah, I just think that with I'm surprised that we don't have some boys coming through the ranks. I mean, that was where our strength was bringing in wingers and bringing, and we just don't see in strikers as well. We don't seem to be bringing any through whatsoever, and it's quite disappointing to see that. Yang, look, he has improved definitely. Will he be to the level of the Jotas, the Maedas, and the Kuhns? I don't think he will. I just even look at him on the defensive side. He's very weak defensively, and our wingers do a lot of tracking back. And even when he came on against Aberdeen, the first thing he did was run himself into trouble and lost the ball and created an Aberdeen attack. So, yeah, my jury's out. Look, I said the same way Engels, and I was wrong. So, so what do I know? But I just feel that we need somebody a bit better. If we're going to look at replacing Kuhn in the future, we need somebody better than Yang at this stage.
But
100%.
The hope ultimately would be that they're coming through the youth system. I mean, we're kind of going down that Premier League route where you got all these players that have got left Man City and they're pulling up trees at other Premier League teams. Like I can't think of the names now. Rodgers that scored the 2 goals against Celtic for Villa. Cole Palmer. These players that they could have gone at the first team Man City and done wonderful things. We've not really had that standard really, but I think I'd love us to if you don't play them and give them a chance and blood them in, and you just go and sign someone from somewhere else, you're never going to know. You're never going to know if they're good enough.
Yeah.
But again, at a club like Celtic, it's difficult because you've got to win every game.
Would the fans tolerate that? We're the sort of fan base where we're not like an Ajax where you'd say, oh, if they know they can come out and say we've sold a few players for 30, 40 million pound, whatever now. So if we have a down season, so be it, because we're going to be blood in the next batch coming through, and their fans will buy that. If you tried that at Celtic, play 3 years, win 3 in a row, then decide, okay, guys, we're going to we've sold Kun, we're selling Jota, we're selling this player, this player, and this player. So we're selling 4 or 5 players, and we're going to replace them with youth players. It's going to take us 12 months for them to come up to the level to go on and start winning titles. Imagine the uproar. You'd have people with pitchforks out the front of Parkhead. Let's be honest.
I don't think you could do it lock stock. I think you look at the way Kieran Tierney was blooded in, which is brave by Ronnie Dalla, but he did it. And he was that was down. I think he was like 3rd or 4th in the pecking order, but it was his attitude that
James Forrest as well.
Yeah, Forrest as well. Yeah, but I mean, there's not that many really over the past 20, 30 years.
Yeah, but look at Cummings now. I mean, he's not been given a chance at all, and he's been banging them in left, right, and centre. Back in the old days, when you had Charlie Nicholas and all these guys coming through, they were given the chance because they were banging them in at that level, and they said, well, put them in. Now, if the game's won or 3-0 up, what's the harm putting these guys in? We're not going to. Celtic should be too strong to lose a 3-goal by bringing on a younger lad. And even with Yang, instead of Yang, we should have. Well, we did bring a young boy in, which was great to see him having his debut there. But still, I mean, we could have put one a bit earlier.
That's actually the next topic I was going to talk about with Jude Bonner making his debut for Celtic. Like, we'll talk about that, him in particular. But yeah, the other one as well you're talking about is Johnny Kenny. Like, he's a young kid. We've got him in there. Yeah, he's not one of our youth academy, but he's been on loan at Shamrock Rovers. He's done well. We brought him back. We've sold our top striker in Kyogo. You've got Ida. You move Maeda into striker, but Maeda sometimes has to play on the wing, and you've got Johnny Kenny sitting on the bench. Why bring him back if he's not going to play?
Yeah.
So, I'd say the point.
I'd loan him out to another Scottish Premier League team. I know we can't at the moment because we're a bit light, but I think it worked with Christoph Aya, didn't it? It worked with Christie, playing against the same defenders, playing against the same, and obviously helping us as well, obviously taking points of our rivals. I think that's a good way to sort of go about it. A season. I know Quan's been out for a couple of years. I can't see Quan come back and really doing much, but you never know. But I think the likes of the young boys, it seems like the only way they're ever going to get to play under pressure, because it's all good and well coming into the Celtic first team and coming on when we're 5-0 up with 10 minutes to go. That's not really, it's kind of a bit more like an exhibition match then, isn't it? They're not really under pressure to, obviously you want to try and get a goal, but they're not under the same pressure and the demands that you really need to actually break through those barriers to become a proper first team player.
Yeah, well, on that as well, there's a comment here from Heavy Vibes, which is saying 4-0 up, play the youth. And that's what we should have been doing. Like, if you look at our lineup, right, for the game against Aberdeen. I'm just getting that up on the screen now here on my phone. On our bench, you've got Ralston, Dane Murray, Johnny Kenny, Jude Bonner, and Yang. There you go. 5 subs. There's 5 young guys. I'm not necessarily saying that we should be doing like bringing them all in, but where you're saying loan guys out within Scotland, they play in the same parks. Look at what Luke McCowan's done coming in this season. He knows the league. He knows the standard. It's a step up from him going from Dundee to Celtic. But you get that. And Smell the Glove is saying in the Netherlands, say Ajax, you at least have 2 rivals in Feyenoord and PSV to lose the league to. We have the Devils scrotum, so I don't want to lose anything to them. And that's fair enough too. I get it. But the issue, I'm going to say with Netherlands as well, for their youth development is their B teams can play into the level below the top flight. In Germany, your B team can play 2 levels below your top team. So if you're in the Bundesliga, you can play in the 3rd tier. So in the 3rd division. There has to be that one. In Spain, you can play at the 2nd level. So us having our guys playing in the Lowland League is absolute rubbish. Like, it's not good enough. And the jump up from Lowland League to our first team is massive.
Look at the population of these countries. I know obviously Spain is huge, but I used to live and work in Holland, and even then I didn't know. But I think the population of the Netherlands is about 17 million, so it's huge compared to Scotland. So that it's and there's a lot more teams as well. So we haven't really got that ability out with the top flight. But you see players that come up to Scottish football from England, for example, they can't believe how physical it is and how fast it is, Scottish football. So I think it is a good bedding to get young players out and get them playing against men, getting kicked lumps out of, and learning how to put it about and protect themselves and look after themselves. Obviously as well, it'll tell you what their attitude is like, how they live their life away from Celtic, from the mothership and stuff. It's not an exact science, but I think it really is probably the next best thing, considering the fact that we don't have the reserve league anymore. All this youth system and things, I don't think it works. I think young players need to play against seasoned professionals, who've been around the block, know all the tricks and all that kind of stuff to get them to that standard. That they've obviously got the talent being at Celtic, but it's whether you've got the stickability and whether you've got the cojones to actually get into a Celtic first team.
I mean, I'm old enough to remember the good old days when we had a reserve league in Scotland, where if you couldn't get an away ticket to follow Celtic, you would go to Celtic Park every second week to watch the reserves. And then if it was a Celtic v Rangers game, you're still getting 20,000-30,000 at Celtic Park for that game, And but it was these young ones were actually playing with those professionals as well, because there was guys coming through from injury, coming back. You could play them. You can't get that now either. So I reckon and now you look at the Rangers now. They've got no B team. They've disbanded the B team. So even that doesn't give them a challenge for our B team, because who are they playing against?
But that's something you said earlier, Kevin. Like, there's no strikers, there's no wingers, and that coming through. And it's not just the Celtic; it's the whole of Scottish football. Like, heavy vibes here saying youth are being held back in Scotland, and then Smell the Glove said here, Celtic should use the 4th or 5th sub for a youngster every game, giving them 15 to 20 minutes.
Agree.
Big Rab is saying, I was really disappointed to see Scales getting time over Murray. We should have 20 to 30 players out on loan and just get rid of the B team. It's probably the best way to do it at this thing here. So the thing I look at is something you said, Ian. I might burst your bubble a little bit here. Scottish population is 5.51 million. Okay?
Yeah.
And there's no youth coming through. 6.3 million is Serbia. They always have youth coming through at a decent standard. And I'll go one better. Croatia. Where are they ranked in the world? 3.86 million. So looking at it that way, on a per capita thing, with Holland and 17 million compared to Scotland at 5.5 million, there's as many people in the state of Victoria, where I live in Australia, as there are in the whole of Scotland. So that's the way I break it down.
Yeah.
Figure it out that way. But the pathway isn't there. That's what it is. It's got nothing to do, in my opinion, with population. It's actually all to do with the pathway that you have in place. I think
Jared,
that's the biggest issue.
100% agree with you there, and I say that to a lot of Kiwis over here about the All Blacks. And now there's as many people in New Zealand as there are in Scotland, spread out in a further area. But the All Blacks always have somebody, a conveyor belt of stars coming through to be the best. I mean, there's no other team sport in the world that can emulate the All Blacks. I know you might not like that, but that's the way it goes. So why can't Scotland do that with players? Doesn't matter what team they play for, but why is it that Scotland can't produce those players? Never mind Celtic, the whole of Scotland, and we're just not getting them anymore. We're not getting the Dalglishes. We're not getting your top name players. God forbid saying it, but Souness, I mean, he was such a great player in his heyday, and so we don't have any. We don't have. I mean, you remember the English First Division or English Premier League? It was Scots right through the middle of the teams. It was Scottish centre half.
The first season of the Premier League, when it came in, every single club had at least 3 Scottish players in it.
Exactly.
And I've actually looked that up. That is a fact. That's not me just saying it. I actually have looked that up in the past.
Yeah.
And half the managers were Scottish. So yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. And
so look at it's kind of exposure as well. If you look at obviously we had Dalglish, they were freaks, the superstars, like what world class players, and the likes of the 60s and 70s, Scotland always just world class players. Dennis Law winning the Black Ballon d'Or. But it's I've lost my train of thought now. What was I going to say?
You were going to say I'll come back. You were going to agree with Smell the Glove saying, ain't it great school system with the All Blacks in New Zealand? It's for me, as an Aussie, the All Blacks is like the culture they have. I'll give credit where it's due. The culture they have, the respect for the game they have, and the no dickheads policy. And that is just, I admire it. And Australia and New Zealand, the way we look at it is that's our brother. No one gets to pick on them except for us. So I should be calling you guys sheep shaggers and all this sort of stuff because you're Kiwi, you're in New Zealand. But at the same time, you're our sheep shaggers. That's the way it is. So the All Blacks, and then we played New Zealand in sport, and you get that, and the All Blacks just absolutely smack us, and that's like the uppercut back to us, like pull your head in sort of thing. So it's love.
Yeah, but as well, look at the All Blacks. That is the ultimate conveyor belt because the players in the first 15, they know if their standards drops, there's someone equally as good to come in and take their place. So they've got to be at it all the time. And I think that's kind of it is doable, but it takes investment in that infrastructure, and it's taken very seriously here, obviously.
So I'm going to bring up some of the comments here. So Pegleg Lonergan saying the reserve league was scrapped during that lockdown nonsense. It needs to be brought back. The clubs will be paying these players anyway, so why not play them every week? And then Heavy Vibes is saying cost each team less than $100,000 to keep the reserve league, and they couldn't afford it. Robert Gibson saying we lack coaches with technical ability and too many kids glued to the PlayStations. And then Big Rab saying we can't be angry at other teams in Scotland for not keeping a reserve league. For years, Celtic and Rangers have underpaid other clubs for Scottish talent, and SFA cuts loads of funding to youth teams. And as Peg League's saying, these problems are all fixable. And Smell the God's like, when I lived in Australia, the Kiwis there were much nicer people.
Aussies are nice as well.
Just on that PlayStation comment, I used before I came over here, I coached back in Scotland. We're all talking about doing the European way, and now I've been here 30 years, so it's gone back a fair bit. We did the SFA coaching badges, and we were taught how we do it, and we're going to shorten the pitches, shorten the goals, and make it pro rata sizes for the kids to emulate in a 11-a-side, but not playing in an 11-a-side men's pitch. Never happened. We were meant to follow the Dutch programme. Never happened. And now you start moving forward 30 years, and you're hearing now that kids can't afford to play football. They can't afford the pitches. They can't afford the training facilities. So everything is actually stopping the kids from playing football. I mean, back in the day, Jared, you might not be aware of this, but back in the day, we all played in gravel pitches, right? So it was gravel. All of Glasgow was gravel. And in the summertime, we'd play football. And in the wintertime, we're playing football, or we'd find somewhere where there's some lights, and we'd put our jackets down, or we'd make a couple of trees the goalposts. They get chased now if you do that. If you find a grass field and you put your jackets down and make goals, they're now getting chased. If you try and get kids in to do a training session now, apparently there's guys there with them and giving tickets out to people, giving them fines for playing on it. So when you start taking that into consideration, you wonder why our football's dropping. Well, there's a bloody good reason for it.
It's the nanny state system, because it's the same over here. Like I'll tell you what you were saying there about the Dutch system. Like that's what we've got in Australia, right? My nephew's playing. I think he's under 14s now, but last season he was playing under 13s, and I went and watched him play, and they were on like a smaller field. They put cones up for their goal. They had the temporary goals. They brought in cones for the corners and the sideline and all this sort of stuff. And it was good to see him get out there and play, but every single one of them, they got no idea about shape or keeping any width, because they're all ones on their Xbox or on their PlayStation wanting to be in the middle of the park, tackling people, smacking people, shooting the goals and scoring the goals. So, yeah, it's fun to watch and everything, but yeah, I just look at it, and then the other part of you saying, yeah, like if you find a pitch and you go and play, yeah, you get in trouble. Well, the other thing we find over here is it's expensive because of public liability insurance.
Yeah.
Playing in public parks, so the clubs are out there going, oh, if you want to play under 14s, it's going to cost you, $800 for the season, and you're playing like 15, 16 games. So it works out it's costing you $50 a game. And then you got to buy boots. Then you got to buy your uniform, your equipment like your shin guards. You got to go to training and all that, which costs more. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I remember what I was going to say before when I lost my train of thought. Like I had my senior moment there. In regards to, we were talking about, I was talking about, obviously Scotland had produced world-class players in recent years. I mean, even, do you remember Charlie Adam at Rangers, right? And he went down to England, and he was chased out of Rangers, really. And he went down, he joined Blackpool, and he was pulling up trees. He looked like Zidane at certain times in the Premier League, the glorious Premier League. Then he got up that move to Liverpool. That showed you that the league isn't that strong. When a player like him can go down, but also as well when you get given the opportunity, Scottish players going down there, or you look at the players that are going over to Serie A now, current Scottish players, and doing really well and holding their own in one of the strongest leagues in the world. So I think obviously McGinn, Robertson are two sort of recent examples of the talent is there. I think. I think it's just getting the opportunity, and I think English football would rather go to any other country to get a foreign import because it's sexier than getting pasty skinned fellow Scot to go and grace their league. But I think it's slowly surely improving. And I think with these guys going to Italy and getting a chance there, I think more people are opening their eyes and getting, and that can only be good for the game. It's happened to us. We've lost a few youth players. A couple went to Bayern Munich, didn't they? And they didn't really make it. But it shows that they're looking at these other teams. So the talent is there. I think it's just getting that the opportunity and the exposure.
Yeah, point there.
So I'm just looking at some of the comments here. Heavy Vibe is saying it's not the common man's game anymore.
Yeah. What was the young lad that went to Liverpool? What was his name again?
Ben Doak.
Doak. Yeah, he's on Middlesbrough now.
Yeah.
But he's been taken for granted. It's apparently Slot doesn't really rate him, and he's going to get rid of him. But now they've got that stupid English tax on him. We couldn't in a million years buy him back now because he probably got the Championship for about 35 million, which is ludicrous.
Yeah,
but I think if he stayed at Celtic, we would have loved him and adored him, and he would have got his move at some point anyway. I think he was too young when he went.
Yeah, that's what a lot of them have. So yeah, it's just ridiculous. Like, something needs to happen. We need to improve the standard, because back to the whole Jude Bonner making his debut thing, like, I'm hopeful we'll see more of him in the first team as the season progresses. And do you boys actually think that's going to happen? Because I think with Bernardo being out in particular, that gives them an opportunity to get in there and be on the bench at least. But what are your thoughts there? Is it him? Because I've got the B team list here as well, and we can go through that and see who else from the B team will we like to see break into the squad. But let's start with Jude. Do you think we're going to see much more of him, Kevin?
I would hope so. I mean, he looks like a big physical boy as well. I was surprised at how how big he looked, for him. And we'd never really done too much. I mean, he had a nice ball through at the start, but I think the game ran past him a bit. But you give him some time, I think he could. Obviously, Brendan thinks there's a player there to give him that chance. So, and Brendan we trust. I mean, if he can do what he's been doing for some of these other players who are youngsters, then I think that's a good possibility.
So, you got anything to add to that, Ian, or you want me to throw the next thing to you?
Yeah, look, I echo really what Kev's saying. But again, they'll only get a chance. They'll only sort of get a chance to flourish if they get a chance, and they get a chance under pressure. So it's just got to be more of the same. I mean, there's players that have gone out. I think Odin Holm, I really think there's a player there, but for whatever reason, it's not really worked out. He looked a superstar on his show reel, don't they all? But I know he's not a homegrown player, but I would have thought he would have been given more of a chance. And Brendan sees something in him, I think, but again, not enough. So I think he looks. I mean, it's the first time I've seen him, so I couldn't really sort of comment any more than that. But we've got a few little gems. I think it's just they need time in that first team or loaned out and to a decent level.
And that's what I'll go through now. But on the Odin Home one, I think he would have been perfect in an Ange system. But under Brendan, hasn't worked. Just the type of player he is. Ange likes those players with a bit of maverick about him, so he would have been perfect in that. But looking through the B team, right, the goalkeepers, I'm not even going to look at. If Sinisalo's not getting the game, there's no chance for any of our keepers down here. Like, you've got Josh Clark, there's big raps on him. And then you've got Joe Morrison. So there's a couple of keepers there. No chance for the first team. But then looking through the defence, right, Dane Murray, he's already around the mix anyway. So that's good to see. I hope we see him a few more times this season. Mitchell Robertson, Ben McPherson, Colby Donovan, those guys, I don't think we'll see much chance of them coming through this season. Mitchell Frame as a left back, I rated him when I saw him. I liked the look of him.
Yeah.
I'm hoping he could potentially be someone we see later on in the piece, particularly if Taylor signs elsewhere, his head gets turned, he doesn't want to look at it. Maybe Frame comes in as your backup to Schlupp, so then we don't have to put Scales out of position at left back. Maybe that's an option to see him a few times. Then the other defenders we've got there is Andrew Kyle. We've got no idea about him. And then we need an Aussie in the first team at Celtic. Like, it's been that way for a long time. I feel weird without having one. So Liam Bonnetig in the B team, give him a Guernsey. He's decent.
Where's he from?
From Sydney.
Sydney, right? Okay.
Yeah,
and did they take him from a local club, or is he homegrown?
No, I don't know if he counted as homegrown. He's moved over there when Andrew was at the club.
Right, okay. So recently, yeah. I wonder if it was like his parents had gone back. It's very rare you get people emigrating the opposite way to sunny Glasgow from sunny Aussie, But
he was at Western Sydney Wanderers youth team, 2005 age, and he signed in 2023 on a 3-year deal. So he's basically got one more year left. But at his age, what's that? What age is he now? Will he hit homegrown? I don't know. Because of his age, he's 20 now. So it could be a little bit too late for him to be homegrown, but still, or academy trained or whatever. But then you go to the midfield, and the first one there's Jude Bonner, we've just spoken about. The next three on the list, I never even heard of him. The next one in the midfield is there's Francis Turley. Now, he's been on the bench a few times. Did he actually take the field or not? I can't remember if he did.
He has. He has a couple of times that he's made a couple of cameos, yeah.
Yeah. So
but I think he's got a lot of promise as well, Tully. But again, it's synchronicity, isn't it, and getting a chance.
So he's the only other one of the midfielders realistically I'm looking at there going that we might see. He's one that I'd probably look at potentially putting on loan to give him the Quan loan to St Mirren next season. If they keep Robertson as their gaffer at St Mirren, send him there.
There's another guy I was thinking is Mitchell Robertson. He's the B team captain. Hasn't he? He's just signed a new deal. I think he's signed another 2 or 3 years. So hopefully they might see something in him. But haven't they just signed up a few of the B team players at the end of the year, at the end of last year? So would that not be a good sign that because one of the things we did find a few years ago, remember they got rid of about 9 or 10 of them all in the one go, So I found that a bit strange. But yeah, I agree with you. They should take them out, put them into some of these teams. But then, as somebody said, what's the point of having a B team then? How do we fill the B team if we put all those guys out on loan? I think we're sitting third at the moment in the lower league. I think so.
I have an idea on how to fill their B team. I think the B team should be for 16 to 18-year-olds only, because that's where the development is crucial for who's going to make it at first team football. Yeah. So if they're going to play against men, put your 16, 17, 18-year-olds in that team and play them. If they're too good for that level, put them out on loan. If they're not good enough at that level to go out on loan, then that's when you're going to sell them or release them at the end of their contract. If they're good enough to go on loan for a year, then you do that forward planning. Like as Big Rab's saying here, we haven't got any first team level players out on loan in the SPFL, apart from the guy at Hibs, which would be Quan. Years ago, we had Christie, etc. So there's no future planning. So it's what we want to start doing. And
Did you see that boy that played for Hibs up front? What was it, last week? I don't know how old he is. I think he's only about 21 but he was immense. He absolutely battered the two centre-halves at Celtic and ran right. So the likes of Hibs are giving these kids a chance. And obviously it's an easier opportunity to do it at a team like Hibs. But,
It's the same with that boy in Hearts. Is it Wilson?
Yeah.
He's 17 or something, isn't
he? Yeah.
Right, yeah, okay. So but again, you only really, when these things happen, when you get like a sort of, I was listening to Pat Nevin's autobiography, and he was on about when he was chief executive at Motherwell, and when they blooded it, they had to get money, they kept having to sell players and stuff like that. But it's in crisis times where you've got to promote maybe quicker than you would have done before, and it kind of you kind of fast track players, and they get those 50 games, 100 games in the first team. You're never going to get that at Celtic, but unless we had some kind of crisis, imagine like someone invested in our biggest rivals and blew us out the water, caused the crisis that way. Maybe that's the way our youth are going to get a chance. I'm joking, by the way.
So I'll just rattle off the forwards in the B team. So you got Joey Dawson, Daniel Cummins, Lewis Dobby, Samuel Izagui, and then loaned out you've got Toby Oluwayemi, Matthew Anderson, Lenny Agbear, and then Ben Summers is over in Austria. And that's about it, right, from the B team. So realistically, I look at it and go, there's got to be a better pathway. We've got to find a way to do it. Otherwise, and a key perfect example of youth players that are good enough in Scotland that we, have to buy. Look, on us buying is Lennon Miller. Like, that's the perfect example sort of thing. If we have our 16 to 18-year-olds in the B team, anyone who's too good for that level on loan for a year or two within Scotland developing, then by the time they're 20, 21, they're filled out, so they're a bit bigger, ready to go. Like, look at Christie's loan. We signed him from Inverness and we sent him up to Aberdeen for 18 months. He come back massive, like he'd done some good eating. That's what we need to get our guys and figure out who's going to be good enough, loan them within Scotland. The rest, see you later. Be a bit more ruthless with them.
Christian very nearly, it was a sliding doors moment. I still don't think when he came back from Aberdeen that Rodgers fancied him, and I think it was one of those, he played a game and he had a blinder and it changed Brendan's mind. Whether that's a false memory, but I'm pretty sure that's how it happened.
Is that the game that we played against Hearts at what's the rugby field in Edinburgh? Murrayfield. Was it? I think it was that game there. We were playing
I can't remember. I seem to recall it still looked like it was out the door, and I really liked Christie at the time, thinking I thought it was a mistake, and then the fated hand sort of touched him on the shoulder, and he got that chance. He played a blinder and changed Brendan's mind.
How about Celtic set up a team in the A-League and take all our youngsters down there? I mean,
I like the A-League. Just started watching it. I watch it on TV, but now Auckland have got a franchise. It sounds like
We're
wasting
not
it.
allowed to talk about that. We're not allowed to talk about that, Ian. This is a
Oh
Celtic
yeah.
podcast. We don't want to
I,
talk
I
about how
think
good.
I think more players
No,
getting loose in the A-League would be good.
don't worry. We talk about the A-League all the time on this pod, so go for it. Go in. I don't care.
Not about Auckland. It's just one didn't think you want to talk about Auckland. That's not how well they're doing.
I'm not worried.
First season.
No, you're doing well. Give him a rap if you want. I'm just looking for something quickly that Liam sent through in one of the chats so that I can bring that up as an option. But there was a club in England, in Yorkshire, and it was something or other Celtic, and their pitch has been absolutely torn to shreds, right?
Farsley Celtic, is it?
Yeah, that's the one. I was trying to get their name. Instead of fixing their pitch, let's just buy them and put our B team down there and let them come up through the English system.
Well, there's
Can't
been
be
talk about
worse.
that.
Yeah.
Did you hear? Did you see the Paul John Dykes had David Lowe on
Yeah.
Axom the other week? Did you see that episode where was it Project Strawberry, where Celtic were all set to buy Wimbledon for 40
that's
million?
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was really close to happening apparently.
I
That'd have been interesting.
don't look at it going, I don't want us to. I said it last week after the Bayern game. All the talk about, Celtic and Rangers down to England. Forget that. Let's go to Germany. Look at how
Yeah.
entertaining and how interesting their football is. Other than Dortmund pantsing us, we played Bayern, we've done well. Last time we played Leverkusen, we've done well. We're good enough to play in that level. We bought Engels from one of the middle of the pack teams over there. Let's go to Germany instead. Like, I'd rather that.
I agree with that, but apart from one thing, imagine all these Scottish people in lederhosen just thinking the children.
It's perfect for, Oktoberfest. There'll be a whole month of drunken Scotsmen across Germany. Perfect. Nothing wrong with that.
The thing is, though, with the advent, with all these, especially American ownership of English Premier League teams, I think that's potentially, and obviously the influence they're going to have. You'll have games overseas and things like that, and inevitably, I say inevitably, but there's a much stronger chance of them wanting to sort of make it a bit stronger and getting Celtic Rangers into the English Premier League and change it up and invite other teams in. You can see it happening. Maybe not in the next 10 years, but certainly beyond that. Again, if the tipping point comes and there's more American owners than not in English football, I think these type of things will happen much more realistically.
Unfortunately, yeah.
There's a really good comment here I've just seen from Big Rab, and he's saying there about offer clubs a percentage.
Yeah, I saw that as well. Good.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. That would get them motivating and making sure they play. I think that's a great suggestion.
Makes sense, because then they'd want to play them too.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that makes sense. I actually like that. It's a good one there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that makes sense. We can do that because we can afford to actually pay other clubs. Imagine if the Huns start doing that, and then it'll be like, we'll pay you in Chupa Chups and lollipops and dust from my ashtray. There you go.
Well, didn't they? Was it Marek Tillman? Who was that player they had from Bayern Munich?
Tillman, yeah.
Tillman, yeah. And didn't they get a fee or something when he got sold to PSV?
No, that was just
that was just talk.
Oh, was that
they
just
said that was the case, but it wasn't.
hyperbole? Was it right? Okay.
That was just their fans having a stock standard wank fest over one of their players that they got in. That's all that was.
Okay.
Nothing else.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, what we'll do is we'll just quickly talk about upcoming game on the weekend against St Mirren in Paisley. So, Kevin, how are you feeling heading into the game, and what are your general thoughts about the match?
Yeah, look, I'm pretty confident. I do believe we won't play as bad as lethargic as we played the other day. And to be fair, I watched the highlights of St Mirren against Hearts this morning, and yeah, St Mirren did look a wee bit fragile at the back in particular, and so I don't really have too much. I think we've got a pretty decent record at. I was going to say Love Street, but it's St Mirren Park, and I'm pretty comfortable. I think we'll do that. And the other thing as well, I just wanted to raise is the fact that we don't have a midweek game now until the last week of the season, and having that rest and being able to train properly, and I think that's going to we're going to see a big difference there, just having that break from midweek football.
We're going to start smashing teams. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I think so. And we do come stronger at this time of year as well. So,
Jeez, one game a week. Far out.
yeah.
We're going to absolutely start pantsing teams. This is great.
It's going to be fun. I hope.
So, Ian, how are you feeling heading into the game? What do you think our game plan is going to be?
I think I expect him to maybe change it. I don't know whether he'll give Maeda a rest, but I imagine I feel he's going to start Big Either up front for the first bit, and I think he deserves a chance. I think when he got a bit of a run in the team before, he started banging the goals in. He scored 2 goals against Villa in a pressure game, so I'd like to see him get a bit of a run. And as much as I love Maeda, I think he's due a rest as well. I think he's earned it. So I think he'll probably have a few tweaks. He'll probably have Taylor will probably back at left back. Kind of the standard changes, But again, that's the whole point of having a squad, isn't it? To rotate it a little bit, and if it's not going to plan, he can get the big guns back on.
Yeah. So, what's your expected starting lineup then, Kevin?
Yeah, I think Ian's got a point there about resting Maeda, but you've got to be a brave man to go in and talk to Maeda and say, "Oh, we're going to put you on the bench." You're not starting, especially the goal one here.
It'll be this one here. Big Rab saying, I want to see Kun rested. He looked out on his feet Tuesday evening. It will be. So Jota will play on the right. Maeda will go to the left. Ida through the middle. That's how I'm thinking. And the rest of the team will be the same as the weekend. Sorry.
Will they start Yang? Will they start Yang for that game?
No.
That's a possibility. I agree, Ida up front, just for the sake of getting them some time on the park. I was actually wondering if you'll actually put Scales in at the back. I'm wondering if you just change that about. I think you might move some players around for this game.
And Ian, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think so as well. I think it's a chance. I mean, let's be clear as well. We've got to get this title won, so we don't want to make too many changes and kind of take our eye off the ball. I'm saying us. I fully trust Brendan Rodgers. I think he's an amazing manager, and I think that'll be his thinking as well. But we are a little bit light on the bench, so it's not a bad thing to sort of get just rotate it a little bit and just to keep the other guys fresh. Kun is a good point actually, with him looking a little bit tired, a little bit sort of blustery, blowing out his backside a little bit against Aberdeen. So again, that's the reason we have the squad, is to put these tweaks.
How far away is Forest?
Pardon?
How far away is Forest? Because Brendan said that he was training.
He's training again, yeah.
Is it too soon?
I don't know, but how good would it be to see him, in for the run-in?
I know exactly when you'd want him back. Wait, you get it. You keep him fresh. Get a few weeks of training into him, and then just unleash him in the derby.
Yeah.
That's
when I'd be looking to bring him back. If he's on training now and if he's fit enough, then that's the game I would target.
Yeah, game before it, maybe give him some legs. Yeah, but he can't be far away. And when's Bernardo? How long is Bernardo out? It was 5 weeks or 3 weeks ago, so he must be coming close.
It'd be a couple of weeks away.
It'd be good to see Bernardo and Jota in the same team as well. I think they were teammates at the youth team in Benfica, so they're really good pals as well. So I wonder if there's a fluidity that will come out of that friendship, and professional relationship.
Do you think our scouts have been banned from Benfica's youth academy games because of what we've done to them on those two? Because it wouldn't surprise me. We haven't been back in to try and get one yet.
Well, I think they've got such a plethora of talent. I think we've maybe done them a favour, because the sell-on clauses are there for them as well. And they're getting exposure in the Champions League that they probably wouldn't have got. I think Benfica said that Bernardo wouldn't have got a chance in the first team, despite the fact he's the captain of the under-21 Portugal team, isn't he?
Yeah.
So there's something about the guy, as we know.
It's good fun. So just having a look here, what some of the commenters are saying is Andrew Galea is saying, we'll see Rodgers' first 11 every week. Smell the Glove saying, we've got to move St Mirren's big players about, no slow horseshoe passing. Yeah, a bit more directness is needed.
Yeah.
Andrew's saying the rotation is over. And then Gone Yourself is saying they have to play the strongest team to start, then bring other players in when needed. Heavy Vibes are saying win league, then rest the players for the cup games. So there's plenty of options there. I just look at it. There you go. Franny Weldon saying Forrest has just started training on the grass, so he's a couple of weeks away. So spot on, ready for the derby then. There we go. And then Smell the Glove saying go over and raid Sporting at the same time. Yeah, makes sense to do that. So yeah, I'm just looking at it going, there's plenty of options for us. We're up and about. I think we'll get this one pretty comfortably. I'm thinking probably a 3-0 win. What's your score prediction, boys?
Yeah, I'm going to go. I'll go 4. I reckon we won't keep a clean sheet. I'll go 4-1.
And I'll go 3-1.
Happy days. So how we end our podcast, Celtic Down Under, is we just have a final thought. So it's always can be anything, couple of sentences. You don't have to justify anything. You don't have to explain anything. Just give a final thought. Can be like some of our guys do music recommendations, whatever. Just give us a final thought to end the pod. So to give you some thinking time, I'll go with mine. Daizen Maeda has now scored 12 goals in the last 11 games. The man has well and truly become our talisman. That's my final thought.
That's good. Well, I've got one. Go on, up to you.
Well,
No,
mine was
go on.
just Schmeichel could have made more money if he could have went somewhere else, but didn't. And I think Schlupp will do the same. And they fall in love with our club.
And Ian?
Right. Well, mine was just to remember. It's kind of a bit of a memory, really. But my connection with Celtic in Australia is, I don't know if anyone remembers, about 8 years ago, the Wiggles came to visit Tom Rogic. I don't know. I think it made the news over in Aussie, but I was responsible for that. It was me to set it up. So I took the Wiggles to Celtic to meet Tom Rogic. He looked totally embarrassed as fuck. And like he got his picture and stuff taken with it, but they were really nice people, really cool. So that's my Aussie Celtic connection.
Happy days, mate. Love it. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. On the hoops. Hail, hail, and we'll see you next show.
There we go.
Cheers, hail.